Welcome to Biggest Spoilars, the destination for exclusive spoilers, latest updates.
At the sanitarium, Britt and Liz get into another tiff over Britt using her work time for particular tasks, when Nathan appears and interrupts them. Liz leaves them, and Nathan explains to his family that Rocco wasn't supposed to have regale with all of them without his parents knowing. Britt realizes the problem then isn't Nathan or her mama, but her. Nathan notes that Lulu still has a right to be angry at her and wants to cover her son. He tells Britt that if she wants what's stylish for Rocco, she shouldn't undermine Lulu's wishes. Britt gets told by Nathan Gh. Curtis opens up to Laura. Curtis runs into Isaiah in the halls and asks where his woman is. Isaiah snaps that he isn't her keeper, but he'll let her know he's looking for her when he sees her. Curtis also bumps into Laura and notes he could use a friend if she has a nanosecond. They sit down, and he tells her that he and Portia are getting a divorce, but now a new issue has surfaced. Portia may be pregnant and hasn't told him. He explains Jordan is the one who derived it. Curtis exchanges with Laura Gh. Curtis admits he still feels a pull toward Jordan, but if there's a baby, he doesn't know what this means for his and Portia's future. He knows keeping or terminating the child is over to Portia, but he'll do what it takes to move Portia to go through with the gestation. Laura asks if that means coordinating with Portia. Dante and Lulu don't see eye to eye. Dante stops by Lulu's, who tells him about Rocco's regale with Albrecht and company, and that their son hid it from them. Dante wants to defy their son, but Lulu suggests they let him come to them. She feels he's caching this because he fears it'll hurt her. Lulu and Dante Gh. Charlotte and Rocco come down, and Dante asks his son where he was the other night when he was working late, and Lulu and Charlotte were visiting Valentine. Dante presses the boy, and Charlotte weighs in and notes they forgot to organize Tracy's boxes on the veranda, so the siblings rush out to do so. Lulu scolds Dante for trying to crack their son using his operative chops. Dante and Lulu realize Charlotte knows about the regale and helped Rocco cover. Dante admits he's upset as there could be an element of peril then, given that Britt is involved. What is Portia's plan? Portia meets Ava at the Metro Court bar and reveals that she and Curtis are getting a divorce. Portia says there's further she's pregnant and she doesn't know who the father is. Ava orders another drink, noting this discussion requires one. Portia admits to her friend that she slept with Isaiah, which is an HR agony, but she doesn't lament it, and her marriage was over in her mind. Still, this likely wouldn't go over well with Trina. Portia is planning to keep her gestation a secret until she can get a maternity test after the first trimester, but Jordan suspects she's pregnant and may have formerly told Curtis. She knows if Isaiah is the father, it'll devastate Trina, which is why she's come to Ava for help. Trina will need Ava's support. Ava will do anything for Trina, and says that extends to Portia, too. Will Jacinda take Nina's offer? In the Crimson office, Nina offers Jacinda a big check to drop her justification of Michael. Drew walks in and prodigies if she's paying Jacinda to medicine someone differently. She says she's paying her to save Willow. Jacinda takes off, and Drew asks why he's then. After they dispute and reappraisal Willow's current drama, and Michael likely framing her, Nina informs Drew that she's paid Jacinda to no longer be Michael's justification. Drew reveals his own plan to buy the Quartermain estate, which will beget Michael to come destabilized and lash out. That will prove Michael is reckless enough to have tried to kill him. Did Ronnie really vend out to Drew? At the Quartermains, Tracy tells Ronnie, "Over my dead body," in response to her advertisement that she's dealing the house. Ronnie wouldn't look any of them in the eyes as she tries to explain that this house is too big, and there are too numerous people then, which she's not used to. Olivia tries to move Ronnie that this could be her family and home if she worked to make it so. Tracy butts in and suggests that Ronnie vend the house to Michael. Michael offers to pay whatever she wants, but Ronnie admits she's accepted an offer from another buyer. Michael is intruded by a call and has to take off. The QS ask, who did she vend it to? Drew walks by and chimes, that would be me. Ned asks why Ronnie would do this, given that she knows about the destruction Drew has caused them. Drew says he was open with and kind to Ronnie, and they clicked over being outlanders, so she agreed to vend his mama's home to him. Ronnie, who gapes at the bottom for nearly the entire occasion, claims she no way wanted to be part of this family, or their squabbles. She's dealing the house and moving on with her life. Tracy snarks, "So you're abandoning the responsibility your family recognized you with and left to you, what a surprise." Ronnie looks at the bottom. What was so important that Michael left? Michael meets Jacinda at the Metro Court, and she tells him that Nina offered her a check to drop her justification. Michael offers her double, but he suspects plutocrat can't buy her trust, which is what he wants. He says she holds the power then, so what does she want to do? Meanwhile, Portia takes off after talking with Ava, and Ava notices Jacinda with Michael and calls Nina to invite her to a drink and to partake in some intriguing people watching. In the show's final moments. At the sanitarium, Laura tells Curtis that staying in a marriage that isn't working isn't fair to a little baby. She asks him to suppose about what he wants. In a perfect world, Curtis wants his baby, but he wants Jordan, too. Britt tells her family he seems to know a lot about parenthood for someone who hasn't raised a sprat. Nathan understands Lulu's position, as he has missed being James' father, a part that's gone to Spinelli. Britt says, "So if Ben Rocco reaches out to me, also I'm supposed to turn him down?" Nathan tells her yes. At Lulu's, Dante reveals to Lulu that Anna believes Britt and Nathan's resurfacing is connected to Faison and his people. Nathan may want nothing to do with Faison, but Britt is another story. On the veranda, Charlotte tells her family that his parents know he's lying, so he has to come clean about the regale and redirect them from what they really don't want them to know about Emma's plan to take down Dalton. Isaiah returns to his cabin with donuts, only to find Portia is gone. At the eatery, Jacinda tells Michael that Nina treats her like a commodity, and Michael treats her like a person, so she's sticking with him. Across the way, Nina arrives to meet Ava, who points her in Jacinda and Michael's direction just as the two toast to their cooperation. Isaiah calls Portia, who says she had to come into the office to finish paperwork, and she'll get right back to him as soon as she can. She hangs up, and Curtis appears. He gets right to it and asks her if she's pregnant. Eventually, Tracy gives Ronnie hell, telling her Monica entrusted her with this house, and she betrayed her by dealing it to this soulless snooper. Ronnie has done the one thing Monica wouldn't allow. She gave up this house. Tracy yells, "Shame on you for smirching Monica and what she stood for." The invitation was not for a celebration, but for a reckoning. It went out via terse text messages and hushed phone calls, a digital summons to gather at a place that had once symbolized refuge, the old boathouse by the lake. The sender was Ronnie, a man who had long existed on the periphery of Port Charles's major dramas, a figure more often seen in the background of crises than at their center. His message was cryptic, yet laden with a gravity that was impossible to ignore. "I can't live with this anymore. Meet me. Everyone needs to hear this. It's about the shooting." And so, they came. They arrived with suspicion etched on their faces, their postures rigid with a tension that had become their default state ever since the day Drew Kane was gunned down. The air in the boathouse was thick with the smell of damp wood, stale water, and unresolved history. This convergence, however, was happening against the backdrop of another, more sacred gathering. Just a few miles away, in the gentle light of the chapel, a baptism was beginning. Michael Corinthos and Willow Tate Corinthos stood at the font, their infant son, Liam, cradled in Willow's arms. The atmosphere here was the boathouse's antithesis, filled with soft prayer, the scent of incense, and the palpable hope of a new beginning. Jocelyn Jacks and Dex Heller stood as godparents, their presence a testament to survival and a united front. Here, the encouraging words were being spoken, vows of faith, promises of protection, and whispers of a future untainted by the past. "I claim you for Christ our Savior by the sign of his cross," the priest intoned, his voice a soothing balm. Michael leaned close to Willow, his whisper meant only for her. "This is our fresh start. After all the chaos, all the pain, this is the day we draw the line. Nothing can shadow this moment." They were encouraging words, heartfelt and sincere, but in the context of Port Charles, they were also a tempting of fate. For while they prayed, the storm was gathering at the boathouse, ready to unleash a downpour of truth that would flood every corner of their lives. At the boathouse, the scene was tense. Sonny Corinthos stood with his arms crossed, his gaze a silent promise of retribution. Carly, ever the fierce protector, hovered near him, her eyes scanning the room for the threat. Anna Devane was there, her professional demeanor barely concealing her personal investment in the case. And then there was Jocelyn, though her mind was divided, her heart still in the chapel. She had come only because Dex had received the summons and insisted, feeling a personal stake as the intended target. They were a jury of the aggrieved, waiting for a confession. Ronnie stood before them, looking like a man who hadn't slept in weeks. His hands trembled slightly, and he clutched a worn, greasy rag, a token from his life as a mechanic, a life that now felt a universe away. "Why are we here, Ronnie?" Sonny's voice cut through the silence, low and dangerous. "You said this was about the shooting. So talk." Ronnie flinched, his eyes darting from Sonny's hardened face to Carly's accusatory stare, to Anna's analytical gaze, and finally to Jocelyn and Dex, the young couple whose lives he had irrevocably altered. I don't even know where to start," he stammered, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. "The beginning is usually a good place," Anna said, her tone cooler, more clinical than Sonny's. "You said you can't live with it. So unburden yourself." He took a shaky breath, the sound loud in the quiet space. "It was about the money." "It's always about the money, right?" He let out a bitter, self-loathing chuckle. "I had debts. Bad ones. The kind of people you don't keep waiting. I was desperate." He explained how he'd been approached not by some shadowy international figure, but by a local middleman with ties to the Bratva. The job was simple: surveillance. He was to watch Dex Heller, log his movements, his routines, his vulnerabilities. His skills as a mechanic gave him the perfect cover to loiter, to watch, to be invisible. "They said they just wanted to scare him," Ronnie continued, his voice gaining a frantic pace. "They said he was getting too close to something he shouldn't, and a good fright would send him packing. They paid me enough to clear my debts and then some. I believed them. Or I made myself believe them." The encouraging words from the chapel seemed to mock his confession from a distance. Michael's vow of a fresh start was a luxury Ronnie had sold for a stack of cash. The promises of protection being spoken over Liam were a stark contrast to the betrayal Ronnie was detailing. "Who were they, Ronnie?" Anna pressed, stepping closer. "Give me a name." But Ronnie shook his head, a frantic motion. "It doesn't matter. Don't you see? It was me. I'm the reason they knew where he'd be. I told them about the warehouse district. I gave them the perfect time and place. I handed them the blueprint." A stunned silence fell over the group. This was the first crack in the mystery, but it wasn't the full picture. They had a tool, but not the hand that wielded it. "So you're an accomplice," Carly stated, her voice dripping with contempt. "You set Dex up to be murdered." "I didn't know." Ronnie cried out, his desperation reaching a fever pitch. "Not until after. When I heard Drew was shot too, when I realized it wasn't just a scare tactic, that's when I knew what I'd done." It was then that Jocelyn, her face pale, spoke up. Her voice was quiet but sharp as broken glass. "My father." All eyes turned to her. "What?" Anna asked, confused by the non sequitur. "The money," Jocelyn said, her mind connecting horrific dots with terrifying speed. "You said you had debts." "My father. John Jacks, he's been funneling money, trying to hide it." "Anna, you suspected him. But you were looking at it wrong. He wasn't paying the shooter directly. He was paying you, wasn't he? He was your anonymous benefactor." The revelation hit the room like a concussive blast. The pieces began to snap together with awful, logical clarity. Jax's obsessive hatred for Dex, his financial maneuvering, his proclaimed mission to protect Jocelyn at any cost. Ronnie looked as if he'd been struck. He hadn't intended to name Jax, he had wanted to confess his own sin and bear his own punishment. but Jocelyn's sharp intuition had torn the final veil away. His silence was all the confirmation she needed. "No," Jocelyn whispered, the word a breath of pure agony. The supportive words she had shared with Dex at the baptism, the shared looks of love and commitment, now felt like artifacts from a life that had just been obliterated. The foundation of her world, her relationship with her father, crumbled into dust and ash. This was the shocking truth, far more shocking than any of them, Ronnie included, had anticipated. The conspiracy was not a cold, foreign entity, it was a domestic tragedy. The architect was not a mobster or a spy, but a grieving, vengeful father from within their own circle. And with that truth, the angry threats began. Sonny took a menacing step toward Ronnie. "You took money from Jax to put a target on Dex's back? You almost got Drew killed for a paycheck?" "Sonny, stand down," Anna commanded, but her voice lacked its usual authority. She was reeling, processing the fact that her prime suspect had been right, but the mechanism of the crime was more insidious than she'd imagined. "Stand down?" Sonny roared, his temper erupting. "He admits to being the eyes for a hit on one of my family? He's lucky I don't throw him in the lake myself." His threat was not an empty one. The air crackled with the promise of violence. This was no longer an interrogation, it was a precipice. "It's not just him," Ronnie shouted, cowering from Sonny's advance but needing to get the whole truth out. "Jax, he's not done. He's furious that he failed. He told me he's not relying on middlemen anymore. He said, the next time, I'll handle it myself. I'll make sure the job is done right. He's completely unhinged." These new angry threats, relayed secondhand, were even more terrifying. They were no longer the calculated moves of a man hiring muscle, they were the visceral, personal vow of a man with nothing left to lose. Jax had moved from patron to perpetrator. The two locations, the sacred chapel and the profane boathouse, were now connected by a thread of sheer horror. In one, a child was being blessed with holy water. In the other, a man was being cursed by his own actions, and a father's murderous intentions were being revealed. Driven by a new, urgent terror, the group from the boathouse mobilized. Anna immediately called for a unit to pick up Jax, upgrading the threat level to imminent danger. Jocelyn, numb with shock, was guided by Dex back to his car, the piece of the baptism utterly forgotten. They arrived at the chapel just as the service was concluding. The congregation was mingling, sharing soft laughs and embraces, the picture of communal joy. The arrival of Sonny, Carly, Anna, Jocelyn, and Dex was a violent intrusion of a grim reality. Michael and Willow saw them first, their smiles dying as they took in the ashen, shell-shocked expressions. "What's happened?" Michael asked, his voice tight with alarm. "What's wrong?" It was Jocelyn who spoke, her voice hollow, the words sounding foreign on her tongue. "We know who was behind the shooting." She looked directly at her mother, Carly. "It was Dad. He hired a man to watch Dex, to set him up. He paid Ronnie to be his spy." The encouraging atmosphere of the baptism evaporated, replaced by a silence so profound the only sound was the soft gurgle of the baptismal font. Carly's hand flew to her mouth. "No. Jax, he's a lot of things, but he's not a murderer." "He is now, Mom," Jocelyn replied, her eyes dead. "And according to Ronnie, he's not finished. He's coming for Dex himself." The angry threats had now invaded the sanctuary. The promises of safety made over Liam's head were rendered meaningless in the face of a direct, personal threat from a man they all knew. The scene fractured. Laura Collins began shepherding the other, non-family guests out, offering quiet apologies. The core group was left standing in the aftermath, the beautiful ceremony now a memory tainted by poison. The final confrontation did not happen in a police station, but in the parking lot of the Metro Court. Jax, having been tipped off by the sudden police interest in his whereabouts, had come to find Carly, to try and explain, to justify. Instead, he found an intervention. He faced a semicircle of furious faces, Sonny, a volcano of contained rage, Carly, her expression a mix of heartbreak and fury, Anna, the embodiment of the law he had broken, and Jocelyn, standing with Dex, her arm linked through his in a show of defiant solidarity. "Jocelyn, please," Jax began, his eyes pleading. "Don't," she said, her voice stronger now, fortified by her anger. "Ronnie confessed everything. You paid him. You set up the man I love to be murdered. You shot Drew Kane. I was trying to save you." Jax shouted, his own composure breaking. "Can't any of you see that? He's a cancer. You're the cancer, Dad." Jocelyn fired back, her words landing like blows. "Your anger, your jealousy, your need to control my life, it's metastasized into this. You became the monster you were supposedly protecting me from." These were the final encouraging words of the day, but they were not of comfort or hope. They were words of strength from a young woman encouraging herself to break free from a toxic bond, to condemn the man who had given her life for trying to take away the man she wanted to share it with. "It's over, Jax," Anna said, stepping forward as two uniformed officers moved in. "John Jax, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and a list of other charges we'll book at the station." As the cuffs clicked into place, Jax's eyes never left his daughter's. But he saw no forgiveness there, no understanding. He saw only a wall of cold, hard judgment. The angry threats he had made through Ronnie had circled back and ensnared him completely. The baptism had begun with a blessing, a ritual of cleansing and new life. It ended with an arrest, a ritual of justice and consequence. The encouraging words spoken in the chapel were now layered with a painful, new meaning, the encouragement to survive, to endure, and to rebuild after the people you trust the most become the source of your greatest threats. The shocking truth, confessed by a desperate Ronnie, had not brought peace, but it had finally named the devil they were fighting. And in Port Charles, knowing the devil's name was the first, crucial step in the long and painful battle that was sure to follow.